Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Hello, Scott.
Josh, my friend, although I care about the initials PSP being related to a lovely little system, it seems like they actually represent the PlayStation Productions house, which, I know it's only a rumour, but we're starting to get more conversations around where they're going in regards to TV and movie stuff.
Yes, Scott, out with the old, in with the new BS. PSP no longer stands for the PlayStation Portable. It is now PlayStation Productions. This was announced last year, and it's been headed up, or co-headed up by Sean Layden, who obviously was very involved with the PlayStation 4. And the idea is to make the PlayStation games and adapt them into TV shows and movies and do them justice, most importantly, because we've had a lot of video game adaptations that have been terrible. So they've already announced The Last of Us TV show coming over on HBO. Uncharted is already in the works, the Uncharted prequel movie. They announced a Sly Cooper TV series a long time ago, and last year they announced Twisted Metal. They did, Scott. I'm going to get to that because nobody remembers it. They announced Twisted Metal, but over on Twitter from an account called Rythian, they apparently are in the know. This was a rumor that's being picked up on Reddit, is doing the rounds of the PlayStation Productions slate that's set to release across 2021 and 2020. And the big sort of news, I guess, is that they are partnering with HBO to release these movies on HBO and HBO Max, which is the HBO streaming service that is, I think, launching quite soon, actually. There's been a lot of different shows being picked up for that, and apparently these TV shows are part of that kind of lineup. So before I jump into the actual titles themselves, Scott Tailford, what do you actually want any of this to happen? Because I know you're not a huge fan of these adaptations.
Well, it depends how I was going to say it depends how they're done. And in the two cases that I can cite, it's not been done. I don't know, right? Because in The Last of Us's case, I trust Neil Druckmann, but I also don't see the point. The more cinematic the game, the more I don't need a TV version of it, because that's just going to want to make me go and play the game. And I'm curious what you can even do with something like a Last of Us TV show that hasn't already been done in the game. I would rather they fleshed out a different set of characters or did something like that, rather than recast what I would say are perfect castings with Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson as Joel and Ellie. In Uncharted's case, it's Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg as Drake and Sully, which even as I say still sounds like somewhat like a Saturday Night Live sketch. Like, what are you doing? I have zero faith in the Uncharted thing, but maybe The Last of Us is literally just because Neil Druckmann's involved. Sly Cooper, though, I assume that's an animated thing.
Yes.
Because if that was live action, I don't know what you would do with that. Actually, if you cast Tom Holland as a live action Sly, I'd probably take that. But
cast them as everyone in the PlayStation canon. You might as well if you're going to cast them as Nathan Drake.
Have them as Kratos. But yeah, I think I'm just cautious. I was going to say cautiously optimistic. I'm not optimistic. I'm just cautious. What have you got?
Interesting. Well, the Sly Cooper TV show, we might as well keep on that. Apparently that is going to launch in 2021 on HBO Max. But the thing about this is this was actually announced in 2017 before PlayStation Productions was initially a thing. There was a bunch of episodes actually completed for it, and it was supposed to launch back in October of last year, but it just never happened and the dates disappeared. According to this Twitter account, apparently Sony had been were shopping it around to different networks. Apparently they shopped it to Cartoon Network, stuff like that. They all said no, but now they found a home within this deal, allegedly. But my big wonder is, if this has been made essentially or been in production since 2017, is it going to be any good? Because if all of these networks did pass on it, and if they haven't been able to find a home for it, would it not just be better to kind of cut ties and do something new from scratch? I don't know. It's going to be animated. Apparently, it's going to be more for kids and stuff. But I'm not sure. I don't know whether I would want to bring something over like that. I would rather just, if I was in charge, which I'm not, start afresh.
You just kill him off. I think I don't know. It depends how it's done. For me, the only thing that comes about with it being in production for a few years is just animation technology and 4K resolutions and stuff like that. Like, you could make it crisper. The peak of animation in my mind is Into the Spider-Verse, but that obviously had a way bigger budget. But there is a really cool. There's a really great version of Carmen Sandiego. I think she's on Netflix, which just has a really great animation style, and in terms of the movement and just like Carmen as a character, that's the version that's that's the way I would do a Sly Cooper animated show. Just immediately super slick and immediately cool and just really good tight scripting and everything. All that stuff would be great. I think the reason that a lot of studios have passed on it is that Sly Cooper has just not been a thing for so long. Like, I know I love the dude. I think Ash is a huge fan. And it's just like, I've got all the Sly Coopers, to be honest, every single one of them, even on the Vita. And but he hasn't been a thing for the vast majority of this generation, which just means he's not going to resonate with the youth, which is who they're trying to target.
Yeah, it's not like Ratchet and Clank, which obviously got a movie adaptation. At least that had kind of been a thing for longer than Sly Cooper, and I suppose was more fondly remembered. And at least they made a new game to go alongside that to kind of drum up interest. But I don't know what they could do with it. Like you said, I don't know who it's kind of for at this point, whether the interest is going to be there. Because Sly Cooper was announced alongside Ratchet and Clank, and obviously we only got one of those. And you could argue that old Ratchet wasn't a very good movie at all, or a very good adaptation.
Oh no, the movie was terrible.
It was awful, man. But so Sly Cooper TV show apparently coming in 2021 alongside Twisted Metal and Parappa the Rapper, which is going to launch as an animated thing. Which
Parappa the Rapper?
Apparently, according to this tweet, again, take it with a huge pinch of salt, but I don't even know how they would do this or what this would. I don't know, Scott. Tell me, please. Please make me feel something.
Well, I guess if you did a Parappa the Rapper show, assumedly you would follow Parappa, but each episode would have to be him doing battle with a different sort of animated piece of fruit or something. Like,
maybe that would work.
I still want him to, fight the Onion guy. I haven't played Parappa since it first came out, but that game was pretty badass for the time. Most TVs couldn't sync up the actual rhythmic, the way that you played it. It was out of sync on certain TVs. I know Jules is a huge fan of Parappa. That just by base concept, I'm psyched about, because graphically that game had that weird 2D what would become Paper Mario style thing, and just even visually I think it would turn heads. Just the sentence Parappa the Rapper TV show in 2021 or something. I'd be ludicrously hyped for that.
It's a thing, right? I think I was a bit too young for it, because every time we have a PlayStation event, the name Parappa the Rapper comes up, and everyone loses their minds, and I'm just kind of like, huh? I remember when they did the remaster that was coming to PlayStation 4, and the internet just went into meltdown, and I was like, who's this dude? Who's this guy? I've never heard of him, but
Parappa the Rapper, and if they ever did Vib Ribbon, that would be the thing that would melt me internally. And Vib Ribbon is only known by 6 people, 2 of them being me and Jules. But there's a little bank of late 90s PlayStation characters that are, for my money, as iconic as the likes of. Well, it's clearly not iconic, otherwise they'd be more well known. But up there with the Marios, the Zeldas, the big lads. I just give me everything with Parappa and Vib Ribbon. And
well, there we go. Right, we talk a lot on this channel about companies weaponizing your nostalgia. So that could be exactly what's going on here. Then you have to pay the monthly subscription to get HBO Max. Then you get these lovely adaptations of things that you loved from the 90s and early 2000s. There's also apparently a Ratchet and Clank TV show going alongside this, but that won't launch until 2022, I'm sorry. But the big thing is, apparently, according to this Twitter account again, so another pinch of salt, apparently they are going to make a Horizon Zero Dawn movie that's going to release in 2022. And then come to HBO a couple months after the fact because of the deal that they've got in place.
That has the most potential, I think, in terms of a visual. I was going to say a visual footprint. Is that even a phrase? Because the whole idea of the Robo Dinosaur stuff in Horizon, I don't think that's been done. As much as I'm sure there's been robotic dinosaurs elsewhere, somewhere in some TV show or something, but I can't recall anything. And I absolutely love the world of Horizon. I think the way that game rolls out story-wise is so full of twists and stuff that you could do for mid-season finales and different things like that. That for me is. I'm not going to say one of, it's obviously a very high-selling game, but its story tends to not be discussed. I think its story should be up there with, The Last of Us and stuff like that. It should just be talked about more. I absolutely loved going through that game, and I think by the time you get to, I don't know, even the halfway mark, it just pulls you in, and you're just along for the ride for the whole rest of it. There's so much there to do as a straight-up TV show.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this is apparently going to be a movie, Scott, so then you get the idea of a franchise and a saga. But I do think, what you mentioned there, it's one of the most unique things that PlayStation has put out in a long time. I wouldn't say it's the best thing they put out in a long time, but in terms of its story, its characters, its setting, its visual iconography, there is very little like it either on TV or movies or games. You know what I mean? It's a very original property, and I think one of Sony's most important of the last generation, because the mythology is so exciting and dense and rich that there are so many different avenues you could go down if you wanted to do an adaptation. So for me, this is exciting, but almost to the point where I can't can't even picture it being a movie because it's so ambitious, because it would cost so much money to get right that part of me wonders whether or not this is kind of like false, because it would be a hugely expensive prospect. And the fact that we haven't heard anything about it, if it is coming in 2022, at least as far as I'm aware. I know there were rumblings back in 2019 when this first kicked off, but nothing official. It makes me wonder whether or not it's something they could even pull off.
Well, that's the thing. Like, as soon as you mention Horizon, like my mind goes to like, well, the CG is not going to work. Like, you know, you have these massive post-apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic version of this sort of like, you know, Las Vegas-ish area of the world, all these different valleys and stuff. But you need to absolutely nail the look of it in terms of the way that those creatures move. And that would be, like you said, a massive budget, which, I mean, Sony have money, but like as a new sort of PlayStation production studio, I would trust them. I don't know. I would assume that you need someone who's more veterans of the craft to be able to do these massive, like I said, a robo T-Rex or whatever. Like, there's going to be a lot of interaction with those creatures and killing them and taking their parts and stuff like that. Yeah, maybe they could do it, but it just seems kind of overly ambitious. I guess, does this feel like the biggest thing they've got on that list of potentials?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I think this will be the one that kind of like takes the most, like gets people talking about like who they would want to see in the roles, how they would want to see it adapted, whether they would want it as kind of, you know, to go alongside the movies, maybe inform the world, or just be a straight adaptation. I don't know, but I do kind of trust in PlayStation Productions, even though we've had nothing from them, just because I feel like Sony, as the movie company, has kind of treated these properties quite poorly over the past, 20 years or something. If you look at how they handled the Uncharted film, you know, regardless of whether or not you like the direction, like they just struggled to get it off the ground for so long. They went through directors. It was in the production for so long that Mark Wahlberg was originally cast as Drake and now he's Sully. I think that sums up how poorly they treated it. And then PlayStation Productions came on board. They actually took over the production of it, and now it's actually happening. It's going to shoot. It's going to come out next year, provided everything in the world doesn't go even worse. So the fact that they managed to...
is a world.
Yeah, exactly. So the fact that they've managed to right that ship at all, for me, is kind of them proving that they're serious about it. The fact that they've teamed up with HBO for The Last of Us, they've got Neil Druckmann actually on board, and they're going to do a faithful adaptation. All of these are steps in the right direction. Whether or not they end up with, you know, good products at the end of it, that remains to be seen. But they are, on paper, they are making the right moves. So I do hopefully trust them with in a Horizon movie, especially because last year they were talking about, you know, talking to the likes of Kevin Feige, and they were wanting to make an almost like a competitor a competitor to Marvel, not in the way that their movies and TV shows are going to be interconnected, but the fact that they have these valuable brands that people care deeply about, and they could make great adaptations of.
Yeah, I mean, it is strange that they're sort of fleshing things out, especially when you look at the way that they handled their first party stuff for the PS3. There's very little first party exclusives that were on the PS3. It kind of feels like obviously you had Uncharted, but there's, like I said, outside of that, there's very little in terms of system selling first party exclusives. Whereas on the PS4, it felt like we had this massive surge of them realizing like, hey, we have this incredible first party IP lineup, and we're going to roll those things out the same way that Nintendo do. And I just think that's the way to go forward. Like, all their branding now has like Aloy and Drake and Kratos and all that kind of stuff on it. Whereas, like, you know, the PS3 was just them scrambling to recover from a disastrous launch. But it got there in the end. I guess, like, any sort of like closing thoughts, do you have a potential casting for someone like Aloy?
I actually don't. I'm so sorry, but I do think you touched on a great point there. You know, you mentioned how over the PlayStation 4 lifespan that they've become defined by these exclusives. And I think that's what they're going to leverage in the PlayStation 5. But I think it's even telling that they just announced the PlayStation, the Worldwide Studios thing. They've even got now a graphic that's going to go at the start of every game after The Last of Us 2. That is almost the Marvel thing. It'll come through like the PlayStation Studios. You'll have Kratos, you'll have Aloy, you'll have Ellie, you'll have Joel. So they're already kind of branding themselves as this kind of place for original content that you can only get on PlayStation. And I think if you make the movies to kind of inform that, you only strengthen the brand. So I do think it's a smart move. As for casting, I don't know, Scott. I don't know who could do that justice off the top of my head. We'll have to do a video on it unless you have any ideas right now.
I don't, other than just defaulting to Anna Taylor-Joy, because she makes everything better, and she'd probably nail it. but Jenna Malone maybe as well. We'll do some sort of Horizon casting, maybe a podcast. The more if this starts to get more traction, and it seems like they are actually going to go for it. But also, we'll hand it over to you down in the comments. Who the hell would you cast as an Aloy that could play here in a potential series of movies? For now, though, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
I will catch you next time.
Bye.